That was Blossom from Namibia, a well-known artist from Namibia. And welcome Zukiswa Wanner, welcome Nadifa Mohamed for our 11th edition of Virtually Yours. It's your floor.
Thank you.
Hello, Nadifa.
Hi, Zukiswa.
How are you? It's good to see you.
And you.
I haven't seen you since Hargeisa.
I know, right? 2000.
I know. Firstly, congratulations on the Booker shortlist.
Thank
How
you.
did that feel like?
It feels good. I can't lie. It does feel good. It's reached a much wider audience now than my book would have had otherwise. Yeah, it's very exciting.
Right. Everyone, for those who don't know her because you've been staying under a literary rock, this is Nadifa Mohamed, my friend, my sister, the author of 3 amazing novels, including this one, which is what we shall be discussing, The Fortune Man. I was about to say The Orchard of Lost Souls because that's my favorite, but The Fortune Man. Right, Nadifa, you have won numerous awards, the Betty Trask Award, you have been one of Britain's young novelists, and yes, Nadifa is also Africa 39 laureate, but now, unlike me, she's over 39 now. Yeah, but Nadifa, I would like you, before we even begin, can we all just take a moment, not of silence, but of loudness, just to like absolutely cheer the fact that somebody that Nadifa and I both really respect won the Nobel Prize for Literature. Can we all just celebrate Mr. Guna for a moment? Like, make as much noise as you want, because I'm gonna make some noise. Nadifa, I'll need you to start with a little reading, and then we can get it.
I've got it.
Fantastic.
Mahmoud stands on Davis Street, looking up through the torn net on the sash window. Looking up through the torn net on the sash window as his family prepares for bed. She stands, spare and angular, with Mervyn on her hip, rocking back and forth to soothe him. Her brown hair aglow under the orange lampshade. Her mother is beside her, and they converse in their abrupt, hand-waving fashion. Omar and David are in their vests and underpants, jumping on the bed and making a mess. If he were to walk in there, they would clamber all over him, like monkeys in a tree, laughing like maniacs while their mother tried to incinerate him with her eyes. She is a formidable foe, able to argue that dark is light and light is dark, and so furious with him that she would unleash Old Testament plagues if she could. He had failed. That pane of glass between them expressed the distance that had grown imperceptibly but undeniably in their 5 years of marriage. He knew, no, maybe not knew, but felt, yes, felt, that she was going with another man. He thought he had seen her coming out of the picture house with a black fella, a light-skinned man with a thin moustache. He hadn't seen the girl's face, that's true. Couldn't keep up with them, but she had the same build and hair color as Laura. She had changed so much over the last 5 years. Hips, a little bit on top too. She wasn't a plank-bodied young girl anymore, but the tongue had remained and could lacerate any man's pride faster than a cat o' nine tails. The first time they had met had been in a cafe in town, her hair drizzled with rain, her skin not far off the color of the marble counter. Her foolish sister was sleeping outside the Furrier's, so she could be the first to buy a fake mink or chinchilla when the sale started in the morning. Laura had ordered a couple of teas when she felt him staring at her. Her seaweed green eyes flashed a glance at him and then back to the clasp of her purse. He hadn't known what to say. His English was still engine room basic then, but he didn't want her to leave without even trying to get her attention. He liked her red hat. the way her hair curved around her jaw, the hardness of her nose above her soft pink lips, the way she wore her cheap, oversized clothes with style. Eventually, with a croak, he asked, "You want to come pictures?" She would tease him about that long after, imitating his accent, an awkward invite. But she had agreed to the date, and 3 months later, they were married.
Fantastic. I think my first question would be, did you ever get to meet Laura?
No, sadly, she died before my research started in earnest, so I didn't get to meet her. But thankfully, she had lots of interviews, and she's left lots of testimonies behind because of the appeal to clear her name.
Okay. And how was that research? I imagine it must have been very extensive, but you then doing all that research and trying to find a way of creatively putting it into a novel without being bogged down. How long did it take you to do the research and do the writing?
Well, the research was a slow process because I was sitting with the idea for a long time, many years, almost 2 decades. And research can mean Googling, you know, so there's a long period of Googling. And then much later in 2015, I started researching properly, what I would say properly, going to the archives, going to Cardiff, looking for people, trying to find people's addresses, you know, really going into that nitty gritty of investigative work, which is the first time I think I've really done that. So it took a while, maybe it took a year or two for me to feel confident about the material, that I'd had enough material. And then I started writing, and the writing process was very smooth because I think I'd sat with the idea for so long and I'd absorbed it, I was living in it. So the writing only took 18 months, but because there was so much research, it was a 600-page book, and then it had to become.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How did you cut that down?
I had to cut it down.
All right. And did you get to meet Melvin and David?
Sadly not, no. Some of the sons died even before Laura, and then 2 others
died.
Yeah,
because I know Oma died before Laura.
Yeah, and the other 2, no, because I was busy working on the Orchard of Lost Souls and other things.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
No, because I think I wanted to know, do you at all know how they received it?
No, because they're not around. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Right. One of the things that struck me was, although this is a historical novel, it's also very contemporary, because the things that Mahmoud deals with is he is getting harassed for just being a confident Black man, isn't it?
Pretty much. But also, he's also a bit abrasive to the other Black sailors and men.
Yes, I realized that.
So I think.
So it was easy for them to then think, oh, you think you're so much better than us.
Yes, I think, and also that's probably why the police were able to pick him, because he was quite isolated. While if he'd lived with the Somali community still and had been very much within that world, he would have been, I think, slightly more protected. But not only was he distancing himself from the Black and Somali community, Muslim one, but he was then also abrasive to this racist white society. So where does he fit in? Where does he find shelter?
Right. And the other thing that I particularly liked was his relationship with Berlin, you know? I like Berlin in particular, because despite the fact that they both seem to be like outliers, isn't it? Outliers. They're sitting there, and perhaps that's part of their attraction to each other.
Yes, yeah, I think they both want to see themselves as being individualists. While Berlin is able to do that while also being a hub. His cafe is a hub of Cardiff and Tiger Bay. So he's not isolated at all. And managing that combination, I guess, or that balance is the hard thing, because yes, you want to be an individualist, but then who will protect you, especially in a world where you definitely do need that protection.
And what was your favorite part of this whole process, like from beginning to the end?
Probably the research. I met so many people. I've found all these different worlds that I'd never been to and been in before. It was an enjoyable book to work on, really enjoyable, considering it's such a sad and upsetting story. There was lots of companions along the journey with me.
It really was. It's one of those things that I found Mahmoud initially pretty annoying, but towards the end I started crying.
Yeah.
And so you wrote that so beautifully and so sensitively, and yet it's such a painful and harrowing tale. I remember it's one of those books. I love your writing, but when I was reading this, I kept pacing myself because I was like, I know what's coming, but do I want to get there yet? So I would consistently just keep holding myself and holding myself and holding myself,
Yeah.
And I think you did that so amazingly well.
Thank you. And when I was writing it also, that as I got closer towards the end, I was also hoping for a different outcome, a way of changing what happened. And of course you can't. And if I tried to change it, it would have been meaningless because this did happen to this real person. But yeah, and I think he is someone you grow to love. Maybe he's a young man who's out of his depth. That's a fact. And then he's also a young man trying to be independent and so that's not necessarily the most endearing quality sometimes, but when you see him in his vulnerability in that prison cell, I think there's no way you can't cry for him.
And talking about the prison cell, particularly when he is towards the end and he makes friends with the two, how much of that was real and how much of that was you reimagining, or did that? And I'm particularly interested in the letter, in the testimony rather,
that he writes in the cell.
Did that happen?
Yes, it really did. He really got in the police detective and asked him to record this last testimony of his. And I found that so shocking. I read the letter, and the letter is in the novel almost verbatim.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so yeah, I wanted the whole novel to have as much of his own words in as possible. So I wasn't speaking for him, he was speaking for himself. So much of the dialogue comes from the archives.
That's interesting. And I think it's interesting, but I also think that it's the idea that the archives exist says something about perhaps the prison system in the United Kingdom, which is not maybe something that we'd have in quite a lot of places on this continent.
Yes.
And elsewhere.
True. It's true. And that's a tragedy because, in some way, however, it is very brutal what they did to him. But there's some record of it, while in prisons across Africa and across the world, people are just swallowed up. They're swallowed up. God knows what happens to them inside there. God knows if they should be in there or not. It's a real
it's a quandary, isn't it?
It's I think it's a humiliation because the way that we run our prisons, wherever we are, is a reflection of the society and what people
society we stay in. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Right. Laura and Mahmoud's relationship was of particular interest to me as well, and I think it would be of interest to anybody who reads this book. And there's a level of almost emotional abuse on his part,
Do you think?
Well, yeah, I did. Even though she's like the way he's suspicious all the time, and I think obviously it's part of his nature because he thinks he's the type of person who, if somebody says hello to him, he wonders whether they meant hello or do they mean, what are you saying when you say hello? What do you mean?
Yeah.
So,
but I think that's what the country does to him. It does give you that paranoia. You don't know how people are relating to you. Are they mocking you? Are they about to be violent to you? Are they being nice to you? But yes, I think with Laura it's different because it's a sexual jealousy and a possessiveness, which I think I can see how that's frightening. And I also didn't want to excuse that or pretend it wasn't like that, because they were separated, but he was very much, he was living opposite her, wanting to get back together, and she wanted to move on. So that dynamic is, as a woman, is one that I find worrying. But she also said that he'd never hit her in their relationship, which in those days was extremely rare. It was considered completely normal to beat your wife or female partner. So he was a contradictory person.
Which is interesting that you're saying that she wanted to move forward, and yet after he got executed, she never remarried.
She didn't. No. And I think she was so young. She was 21 when all of this happened, and she didn't know what she wanted. She was 17 when they met. They had 3 babies in quick succession. Of course, she was probably tired. She was thinking, "Oh, I'm tired of you." All of those sorts of things that happen. But if they had both been able to live longer and be together, maybe they would have reunited, or she was still friendly with him. And as soon as he was in trouble, she was there by his side. So there was a strong love between them.
And how has, I'm curious, how has this, I know you're a darling of the family, but how has it been received by the Somali community in the UK?
It's difficult to say because there's not many events. But well, I'm taking part in Somali Week Festival this month, later this month. So that'll be, I think, really lovely. There'll be music and poetry, and I'll talk about the Fortune Men. People are happy. I remember one friend on Twitter was just saying that it's so nice to have a Somali story, seeing this kind of, getting this kind of attention, because we've been in the country, been in Britain for a long time as a community, but have generally been ignored, unseen.
Yeah. And you've drawn that so well, that particular history, because you have all these characters as the sailors and people who are sitting in a bar on the day that Elizabeth becomes the queen.
Yeah.
And yet, so they've been living through this. How much of what Mahmoud goes through in the book do you think that not just Somali men, but Somalis are still experiencing in the UK? The discrimination, the low-key aggression, the passive aggressiveness that doesn't, and then they're like, "Oh, you're overreacting," type of thing. How much of that still exists?
I think they experience it. They experience it like most Black populations in this country, and then I think being Black and Muslim creates another conflict where if you're not being treated with suspicion because you're Black, then it'll be because you're Muslim. So it's still hard, but then it is also different to what it was like in the 50s. So Mahmoud would have had a very, very limited opportunity here. You were meant to stay in the Somali boarding houses, which were owned by the shipping companies, and you were meant to have a choice of very few jobs and be happy with that. So the fact that he moved out of that boarding house and married a local girl and tried to find work in other places, he was constantly pushing against those barriers. While nowadays, you don't have those few options. But I think as a whole, the community is still probably a marginalized one.
Okay. Kava as a witness, and then he's a witness and he says, yeah, he's seen this guy has done it. Did he ever get paid?
You're asking very practical questions. You want all the glossary of the book. He did get paid.
Guys, I'm not giving anything away, but I wanted to know. Or maybe it's something for you to look forward to.
Yeah, but that's outside of the novel, but he did, to answer your question.
All right. No. The reason I was particularly curious about that is because the fact that he was there when Mahmoud is there, they say, okay, no, he didn't do anything wrong, many years later. And and so I'm trying to figure out how you live with the death of somebody on your conscience? Like, what amount of money could you actually ever, you know?
It depends on the personality.
I guess it does, eh?
He was a violent man who, you know, almost killed his own daughter. So I
Yeah,
don't think
that tripped me out.
Yeah, so I don't think the death of Mahmoud would have weighed that heavily on his conscience. Yeah, it's difficult to say. I can't speak for him, but I don't know. He was adamant that he had told the truth, but he had not told the truth.
Was he ever, you know, was he ever like interviewed after Mahmoud was cleared and stuff? And did he have anything to say?
I think he was, but I haven't been able to. I've only heard a snippet, but I would love to get the full recording of that. He was interviewed.
Okay, fantastic. Is there anybody who has any questions for the book shortlistee, Nadifa Mohamed, about her book, The Fortune Man? Or shall I continue? Anybody who has questions, please just type them in and I will ask Nadifa as we go on with the discussions. Right. What else did I want to ask? I've like 1,000,001 questions, and now I'm like, I have pages that are marked. I'm like, I want to ask about this. And right. Oh yeah, the family of the deceased, you know. Do you know anything? What happened to them? What happened to Lily's family?
They moved away. They moved out of Cardiff. Okay. It was incredibly traumatic, which is not surprising. Yeah, they started a new life.
Did they go to America, or did they just move away and nothing?
They stayed in the UK.
Okay, and so nothing. They've been like on the down low. They haven't said anything about it, and
no,
all time.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think that's the other thing that got me, isn't it? That you had these two people who did this testimony, and a lot of the testimony was based on like things that were really shady, and yet the law could still hang a man based on, you know, a lot of lies and they all look alike, really, isn't it?
No, they said the opposite. They said that he was very distinctive looking. That's why they know it was definitely him.
Oh yeah, actually they did, hey? And yeah, and but the person who they thought it was, because the person who covered Saul was actually very different, because he used to be a sharp dresser, Mahmoud, and you know, had swag and didn't try to blend in, and
yes, and he didn't look like the man that they were looking for, but he fulfilled another role, you know, in a psychological way. He was the man that they were looking for.
That they were looking for, because they didn't want anything. Well, you know, it's like, go, you speak too much, you're too confident, and you're not nice, you know, you don't know your place. Yeah,
that's what they found troubling.
All right. And you know, when they did the lineup, and they don't do the lineup, is that actually, would that have Never mind. I'm sorry, like there's so many exciting things about this book, and I'm just like, oh my God.
I'm wondering how many people in the audience have read it.
Oh no, I know pretty much everybody here has read it, like 3/4. I mean, come on. I would be very surprised if they didn't.
Can we have
Who hasn't read this by in the comments? Apart from, can you say if you haven't read this book? And if you haven't read this book, then you probably won't be able to win it. Good, Namibia. Thank you very much for ordering. But okay, I'm really curious. Are there any questions beyond what I have to say? Because beyond what I've asked so far, because if not, I would really like you, Nadifa, to be able to tease us with another passage. And the reason, Francina, I'm not narrating the book. I haven't like shown you like what pages and stuff. But would you like to read another passage? And the reason I am asking for that is, well, you know, firstly, it's book is shortlisted, and it's a beautiful book, and I really think that everybody needs to read it. You know, I think it's an important narrative. It says a lot about, you know, the history of a country and the history of a people in a country. And I think in this particular time when we're celebrating Guna and how he always writes about immigration and refuge and so forth and so on. And I think this was particularly, you know, it spoke to me on that part as well, you know.
Mm. So there are no questions.
Well, it doesn't seem like anybody has a question right now, you know. So maybe while we're waiting for people to formulate other questions, we can give us a reading.
Mahmoud lies on his back, his eyes tracing the cracks in the painted ceiling from one corner to another, his head cradled by his interlocked fingers. The cell is bright, and he can hear laughter from the exercise yard. He hasn't left his cell since he was charged with murder and moved to this new wing, or opened the Quran that a warder pushed through the hatch in the door. He is wary of mixing with the other prisoners in the hospital, expecting to find some in the full flush of TB, or even worse, men who look well but carry an arsenal of poxes, bacteria, and viruses that he might pass on to his beautiful sons. He'll ask the doctor if they are contagious, and then venture out of the fetid room. Maybe he should tell the doctor his real age too. It probably won't make a difference, he knows, but perhaps they'll go a little easier on a 24 rather than a 28-year-old. He should show the doctor that his life isn't cheap. Tell him that he was born in Gorki, the year of registration, the year of famine. Delivered safely in the middle of nowhere between Arabsio and Berbera to a mother well past 40, Mahmoud had arrived into a world wet and red from the slaughter of emaciated animals, a world of Indian civil servants under shady trees, scribbling nomads onto welfare lists, of sacks of government rice and stewed wild plants. The drought had lasted 3 years already and had followed an outbreak of rinderpest in livestock imported from Europe. Out of his father's 38 camels, only 10 remained. Of his 72 cattle, only 5. And as for the sheep, well, their bones would make good fertilizer. The goat hides had gone to Aden for a measly price, the market glutted, the British customs officials taking their usual tribute of tax. Mahmoud had heard all of this over and over again from his mother, Shankaran, the abar and gacho she had faced, the many times she had snatched him from the clutches of death, her self-sacrifice, her ingenuity, the frayed rope tied tight around her waist to staunch her own hunger pains. The story of his life recited in the poetry of a melodious, melancholic Buran Bor. He knew every detail of how she had trekked 4 days to a welfare camp in Bulhar, carrying him on a sling on her back, only to be told by a Yemeni fisherman as she approached the coast that no one who entered the camp came out alive. An outbreak of smallpox had cut down those already weakened by hunger, he said. She staggered back in the direction she came, the horizon melting into a yellow mist, only to wake up lashed to the back of a girl. The Mahmoud in the arms of a tall, raven black woman, feeding at her breast as she marched beside the camel. That woman nourished them both and then deposited mother and child at the nearest settlement before venturing further into the eroded, skeleton-strewn knee. His mother never mentioned the saviour's name or plan, if she ever even knew it, but gave meaningful looks to suggest it was clearly not a mere human they had encountered. Jinn, angel, reincarnated ancestor. It wasn't for her to pretend to know.
Thank you. You bring in something that I've been wanting to talk about, and that's his origin. And what one of the reasons why I really related to him is because he's an itinerant, he just loves, and when then you look at that, perhaps it is what then also makes him such an individual, you know, such an individual, because he's used to, okay, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do this, despite the fact that he was the last child. And so you know, I'm trying to figure out, would Berlin have communicated what happened after that? You know, well, not without giving anything away, but I'm trying to figure out this man who is home, but he's not home because he's decided to choose what his home is, and then this home doesn't accept him, you know?
Yeah, and his home is his family, the family that he's made in Cardiff.
Yeah.
While other Somali sailors continued, even if they had a local wife from Wales or England, they kept on traveling, but he decided to give up going to sea and stay there. But he was always, I think, someone who resisted groups, that kind of communal thinking, communal way of being. And that's the challenge of being someone who is like that. I think you cut maybe a path for other people to follow, but you have to cut it alone. And from a young age, he was traveling, across Africa. He joined the Merchant Navy in South Africa from Durban, and then all around the world with the Merchant Navy. So you become, I guess, very self-sufficient, very, you can walk away from most situations. And I guess that's also part that plays into the problem later, where this is a situation he could not walk away from.
I really enjoyed your reference when you was talking about travel, when one of the guys says to him, "Oh, you are, like around the world in 80 days type of thing," and he looks and he says, "What is that?" And I couldn't help thinking about that, because there is so often the belief that we should know everything that happens that's popular in popular Western culture, And so, despite the fact that he is a very intelligent man, he's a very I don't know about his emotional intelligence that much, but he's a very intelligent man. He's got a certain self-awareness, and he's very worldly in a way that all these guys aren't. But because he doesn't know this particular thing, it looks like, okay, another savage from Africa type of thing.
He's not afraid to say, "What do you mean? What is that?"
This is true, and I liked about him. But I also liked about how he would not allow himself to be insulted consistently. He would do the pushback, and that was such a beautiful thing. I really appreciate that. I don't know whether you got that from the archives or whatever, but I really appreciated that. You gave this person dignity. This man who lost his life when he shouldn't have. You gave him a lot of dignity.
Of course, he always had that dignity. It was trying to acknowledge that dignity that he knew he had.
Right. There's a question here from Helen Vale in Namibia, and Helen wonders, how much have you been influenced by other writers who were immigrants into the UK in the 50s? She is thinking of authors like Sam Salvon from Trinidad.
Yeah. Heavily influenced. I love Sam Salvon and The Lonely Londoners. I think if you read The Fortune Man, you can see there's a scene where one of the guys is talking about his life in London, and that's heavily influenced by Sam Salvon. And the way, I think there's a line with love where he says, "Summer in London really be hearts." Like it's lovely. And he goes into this lovely kind of rhapsody about why he's in London, why he's left Jamaica to stay in London. So yeah, Sam Salvon is a big influence, and also James Baldwin, obviously. And I think the most important thing was to try and understand the psychology of being a young Black man then. That's if you hadn't said that, I actually thought this was you and your love for London, that waxing lyrical thing. Yeah, well, I guess it is, because that's why The Lonely Londoners is so special to me, because I agree, London in the summer really does be hearts. Right. There's also a question here, follow-up, says, did you need to do research on Somali 20th century history as revealed in the passage, or you just read, or you
did you just know that from your own parents?
20th century history.
Yeah, of Somalis. I suppose you did. Well, that's really the core of the book, isn't it?
No, not of the Fortune Men, but from Black Mamba Boy and the Orchard of Lost Souls, I've gone over that. So yeah, it's something that I know pretty well. But I think this novel is the least Somali focused out of them, because most of the time he's in Cardiff. And what was going on in Somalia, we talk a bit about, the novel talks about what was going on in Somaliland in the 40s during the Second World War. But then he was a child, so he's also seeing it through a child's perspective.
Child's perspective, yeah. Now, okay. For some reason, I read that to mean Somali in the UK, as opposed to like the research. That's how I understood it.
Yeah. So yeah, I had to do a lot of research on what life was like for Somalis and other Black immigrants to the UK. There were some really fantastic books. There's one called Negroes in Britain, which was a sociological book written in 1947, which is really useful. They went to Cardiff and they interviewed Black families and said, okay, tell us exactly about your lives. Where do you live? How much money do you earn? What do you eat? Very kind of granular details about their lives, which is great when you're writing a novel. And then there's another book, which was about the Muslim community, Muslim sailors and Muslim migrants to Britain over the last 200 years. So between both of those, I got a good sense, and other books as well, I got a good sense of what the factual life was like for people here, the everyday life.
And I wanted to also like touch on that, on religion, because he is not really a religious person, but he then, becomes, but because he self-identifies as this, as a lot of people do in a country that considers itself, or a space that considers itself Christian, and it was actually one of those parallels I saw between Mahmoud's world of that time and Mahmoud's, the current times, in those parallels. And
in what way?
no, I think I was looking at it as, the fact that he's always, there's a level of suspicion that's rendered on him on account of the fact that he is not from a popular religion, well, not popular in that way, but popular in, like, it's not a majority religion in the place that he is in. And so, in the same way that now you get that into the same space, what you said earlier about having to do with the idea of being Black and also then being Muslim. And I saw that with him, but then at some point in time, then, where he's like, okay, I guess, when somebody's a bit agnostic and then he seems to then just finally like move, as will happen when you see.
Yeah, he's lost, and the only comfort he can find is in God. And also it goes back to the dignity question, where as a Muslim, he feels that he can claim his dignity in relationship to God and in relationship to his own customs, while in the prison and in Cardiff generally, most of his dignity has been taken away. So it's also, it's both a spiritual exercise, but also a psychological one to keep him together. He knows that God is more powerful than all of these people. So if he relies on God, then something will happen in his favor.
And it's the hope for me. I love that, he keeps on, he holds on, and it was beautiful, but it was also very, very painful, because you've already told us what's going to happen,
Yeah.
No, you've already told us. TJ wants to know. TJ, how you doing there in Nigeria? He wants to ask about the interesting role of fiction. Fiction seems to play in bringing attention to political issues in a way that journalism doesn't seem to do, especially how it resurrects these issues and keep them in public consciousness. For example, more people will engage with the history of more falsely accused Black people in 90s Britain after reading what you've done with Mahmoud Matan.
Yes, and I think for me, the fiction that I've read over the years has also done that. So yes, you can pick up a newspaper and read about something terrible that's happened, but then the next day something else has happened and something else has happened. So it becomes very something that doesn't enter your mind in a very deep way. Well, if you're reading a novel and sitting with characters for days, then there's a relationship that develops. And I think when I read The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy, and it took me to Kerala, and it took me to, you know, the dynamics between different religions and different caste groups in Kerala, I would never get that level of detail, that lived experience in a newspaper, because they're doing different things, they're aiming to do different things.
Absolutely.
But it's the account that I read in The God of Small Things that will stay with me about Kerala than any other newspaper article that I'll ever read. And I think, you know, all the way through, literature has been used as a way of galvanizing people politically, making them conscious of abuses, whether that was slavery in the US or serfdom in Russia, the way that workhouses exploited the poor in Britain. And that's great. I think that's a great tradition to be part of.
And it's also the freedom that fiction gives you that journalism doesn't. Because as a person who comes from both, I do find that when I'm writing fiction, I can talk about injustices and use characters that people will be able to, like, I know who this is, but if I say it in a journalistic piece, I'm bound to be sued, you know? So there is that freedom.
You do have that creative freedom.
Yeah. There is that freedom that fiction gives you.
Yeah.
Right. Any other questions? We are almost coming towards the end of our beautiful chat. Thank you so much, Nadifa. This has been amazing. Are there any other questions in the audience? Anything else? Going once? Going twice? All right. The mother-in-law, Laura's mom. You knew that was coming, did you?
Answer your questions privately. I'll give you a fact file.
No, but she's a person of her time, though, isn't she? You know.
Yeah. But also interesting because, you know, that family very unusually let Mahmoud move into their house. That was almost unheard of. So I find them quite intriguing, that family.
I do too. I was like, okay, but nice, you know. So I loved how you she manages to be a person of her time, but she also really manages to be like such a forward-thinking person, you know, in a way.
I think that human connection, you know, when you go beyond politics, you know, race, economics, it's very difficult for people to resist that human connection. And people did, because they thought, if I accept this man in my life or in my family, I will lose whatever status I have, or I will be harmed. But I think especially when I think Laura's family had very little to lose financially. They were already very poor. So they were able to just take Mahmoud as another individual, as another human being who could maybe help them in some way, or just be part of the family. So I find that really interesting, that dynamic.
Detlef wants to.
Yeah, it's not. It's a man also from Tiger Bay. His name was Tall Jama, and he lived at the same time as Mahmoud, and he was captured in a photograph by a British photojournalist called Bert Hardy, who did a story on Tiger Bay in 1951. So he must have known Mahmoud. He must have known all the people involved.
Oh wow. I want to come back to Berlin because it fascinates me so much. It's my favorite kind of book, you know? Yeah. How does this man come, you know, he meets this young man from where he dies back in Hargeisa, and then he gets into this space, but he manages to create a community despite the fact that he's very standoffish in a way, you know. And that fascinated me about him, because people wanted to be you know, but he was still I don't know, like, how did you do that?
I don't know. I don't know, but I fell in love with Berlin. I love the fact that he'd come to Europe as a child as part of a human zoo, that he had stolen an Arab sailor's papers and joined the Merchant Navy. He'd served in the First World War on ships and lived in New York in the 1920s. You know, he was an exciting person, and he really did have this milk
guy, you know,
really fascinating.
I mean, the guy who just like, yeah, probably has like children all over the shore and stuff, and he does have some children.
Yeah, and one of them I know, he lived in Cardiff.
Yeah.
So getting to know his son actually allowed me to see the different sides of Mahmoud, different sides of Berlin. But yeah, I guess any kind of community, if it's going to survive, needs people like him. And the character in the book is a mixture of the real Berlin and then also another man called Kaline, who was the man who actually organized the financial support for Mahmoud. Yeah. So he's a mishmash of more than one person, but those people who keep a community alive and, you know, give people help when they need that, we rely on them. We really do rely on them.
Abu Bakr, hi, how are you doing? He wants to know, he says, well done, Nadifa. He's wondering how challenging it was for you capturing Mahmoud's complex character, being the many things he was, and being a real person. Did you worry about what his family and those who knew him or his family would say? How much did that weigh on you?
It definitely did, of course, and with all of the characters, because they're based on real people. And there's that point where you have to jump from it being completely factual to it being fictional. So that's one of the reasons I changed the murder victim's name and her family's name. And to write a novel, you have to give yourself permission to go where you want to go, where you need to take these characters and where they take you as well. Because I think when you're writing, it's not a completely controlled experience. You're also being led somewhere that you don't know. So of course, you know, I would hate to do anything to add trauma on a very traumatic story already.
All right. Any final questions before I do this? Final question going on. This is always the fun part. Nadifa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is when you pick the book, pick the winner.
Yeah. Right. Okay, I guess I can do this. Detlef, can I?
Yes, of course.
All right.
I'm with you to check who is online.
Right. Right. Picked up the first person. Ah, look at you, Helen Ambassa. Are you around?
You should be.
Helen.
She's there.
Is she there?
Yes, she's there. She's still there, but the mic is mute.
Okay, all right. Our first winner is Helen.
Lovely.
Second winner, Madhu. Madhu, are you around? I know you're around. I thought I saw you.
The real name, Madhu?
Madhu Krishna.
Madhu?
Doctor. Prof.
Not under that name.
All right, no, then that's still 4 more books to be won. Halima Kimani. Halima
No.
Kimani.
No.
No, not here.
Is my name in?
No, your name isn't in. Aja Salafranca. Aja, are you here?
No.
I think I let you in a little while ago, but I don't know whether
So
you're still
yes,
here.
yeah, she was in, and we lost her.
Oh, okay, all right. Well,
But no,
she's not here.
sorry, she's still there. Sorry.
Are you here, Aja?
She's still there. The mic is mute. I can see she is live with us.
Okay. All right. So 3 more.
I'm here.
All right, fantastic. I'll email you, Aja, and
Okay.
the book will be sent through to you.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
Belinda K. Somebody who just goes by the name of Belinda K.
Nope.
Like an R&B artist, Belinda K.
No, it's not online.
Wow.
Hmm. The cashew. The cashew
The country
there
is not online.
Okay, all right. The cashew is not online.
I'll tell him that he missed his win.
Yahaya Dabo. Yahaya. Yahaya. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Nope.
Nope. There, it looks like your name might actually come up. Oh my God. I want to know the type of muti that you have. Alison Smith, you have won again. Alison, are you around?
I think she sent me an email that she is not sure if she can join.
Oh, that's a pity. That would have been 3 for 3. All right. Lena Amutenya. Lena Amutenya.
No,
I'm gonna have to go.
Huh?
I will have to go.
All right, absolutely. You can go because it's 3 minutes to. All right.
Okay.
Let me just try and find who the last person, the last 2 winners, well, 3 winners actually. Lina Amwala. Lina Amwala.
She is there. She is here. Yeah.
Okay, Lina
Lena
Amwala
is there. She had problems with the internet, but she's there.
All righty. Harriet Mawona. Harriet Mawona.
Harriet is not there.
Okay, all righty. Serafina France wins again. Serafina over there in Namibia. Fantastic. Serafina, are you here? Yeah, she's there. All right, fantastic. Last winner. Samuel Amemo.
No, Samuel, I didn't see.
Okay, all right. Sarah Negumbo. Sarah Negumbo.
Oh, our director from Namibian Library Archive Service in Namibia. No, unfortunately not.
Okay, all right. No, that one is not there.
My battery is about to go, so I'll say goodbye now in case I get cut off.
Nadifa, thank you so much. This was lovely. It was such a pleasure, and we're keeping our fingers crossed for you.
Thank you.
Our final winner, we actually have Noses with Cynthia Jelly. Are you here? Noses from South Africa. That's our final winner. Are you here?
No, I think you must draw somebody who is online now.
Okay, all right.
But before Nadifa,
thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
It was lovely, and we're keeping our fingers crossed for the booker.
Thank you. Thank you.
All
Have
right.
a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Good luck from my part. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao. All right.
Did Francina?
Okay, you're here. You're really, stop yelling. We see you. Okay, so our winners for today, Nozizwe, Sarafina, Lina, Aja, and Helen Ambassa. Congratulations, everyone. Tomorrow is Detlef's birthday.
How do you know?
I know things.
I
won. Detlef.
Yes.
whoever's birthday it is.
It's Della's
Thank
birthday
you.
from Goethe-Institut, Namibia.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
happy
Thank
returns.
you. Yeah.
Happy birthday, Butler.
Thank you.
Right.
Um,
Abu Bakr, you actually didn't need to win because, yeah. And Audrey, I can't keep rigging for you, my friend.
No, it's my nosy. It's not you. It's not you. It's not you. It's a SADC thing.
Birthday, Detlef, are you going to play some music for us before we leave?
Yes, of course. But I just wanted to mention, first of all, thank you very much for all the birthday wishes in advance. I've never had so many from so many countries, you know, that's great. But talking about countries, we had people from Nigeria, a lot of people from Nairobi. I know also from South Africa. And of course, we had this time quite a lot from Namibia as well. Even we lost some people in between. But yeah, that I wanted to share with you. And to finish our session, I choose an author, Shishani, she was also very often at Goethe-Institut for some events, and she has a song about raining words. Shishani,
before you put the music, Detlef,
yeah,
I need to make this announcement. Next
yes.
month, it's not going to be business as usual, guys. We're actually having the first Virtually Yours Literary Festival. And it's going to start at on the 11th. On Thursday, the 11th, we'll have one session a day. On Thursday, the 11th at 6 GMT, which is, what's that, 8 p.m.? It's 8 p.m. Namibian time, Central African time, and it's 9 p.m. East African time. So yes, it's going to be an amazing festival. We're going to have people like Maza Mengiste, Beata Marais, Angela Makolwa, and Mkoma Wangugi from this side of the continent. And, you know, and we'll have, Remy will be moderating Maza, which should be very interesting because you know how he likes trolling. So yeah, that's something to look forward to. Thursday, the 11th to Sunday, the 14th of November at 6 GMT. We will be sending out the posters very soon. And yeah, look out for it.
Yes. And of course, we will let you know through our medias. No? But now I'm going to share with you Raining Words.
Those who win, that's the book. The Fortunate.
Raining Words from Shishani.
The distance speaks, no turning back, there's only road ahead. I broke your heart, got to carry the pain, and now I go my way. The rules of love are written in those clouds above. I tell no lie, we had our time, but now we say goodbye. Though it's raining, words escaping me, no explanations to how I feel. All the letters could fall into patterns, but the sentences would make no sense. And though it's raining words telling you how I feel, telling you how I feel, remains to raining words telling you how I feel, telling you how I feel, remains difficult to reveal. The clock ticks on, both you and I, we've gotta live our lives. I let you down, sometimes you've gotta do wrong to make it right. The rules of love are written in those skies above. I tell no lie, I know we had our time, but now we say goodbye. Though it's raining, words escaping me, no explanations to how I feel. All the letters could fall into patterns, but the sentences would make no sense. Though it's raining, words escaping me, no explanations to how I feel. All the letters could fall into patterns, but the sentences wouldn't make no sense. And though it's raining words telling you how I feel, telling you how I feel, remains difficult to reveal. And though it's raining words telling you how I feel, telling you how I feel, remains difficult to reveal. Then the moment comes, I feel clear as a raindrop falling. I touch the ground, and then I feel so loud. I feel so loud. I feel so loud. I feel so in my silence, in my silence.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed it.
Absolutely, thank you so much. Now I have a new musician to my playlist, Detlef, and have a fantastic birthday tomorrow.
Thank you very much. I have to continue with my referee at the Namibian Championship, but anyway, I will enjoy it.
Well, cheers, have fun with that. You know, after
Okay.
wrestling, then you can have some wine or something.
Yes, some wine or some ciders or maybe both. Yeah.
It's your birthday, you can do it all.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.